The radar screens went blind. Inside some of the most heavily guarded military command posts on Earth, that was almost impossible to imagine. These early warning radars watched the northern horizon every hour of every day, built to provide the first unmistakable sign of a nuclear missile attack. Their value depended on one assumption. If every screen failed at once, someone might be trying to hide an attack. Then, without warning, every major station looking across the polar route began reporting the same thing. The displays dissolved into overwhelming interference. Operators were no longer watching the sky. They were staring at noise. No one yet knew why. The confidence surrounding those radar screens had been earned over years of constant vigilance. Stretching from Greenland to Alaska and Britain, the network existed for one purpose: detect Soviet missiles early enough for commanders to respond. Quiet screens meant safety. Sudden blindness meant something else entirely. The strange part was not that one radar struggled. All three experienced the same crippling interference almost simultaneously. Equipment designed to reveal danger had become incapable of seeing anything beyond a wall of static. That pattern mattered. Military doctrine already contained an explanation for widespread radar jamming. An enemy preparing a surprise nuclear strike might first overwhelm warning systems with electronic interference. If defenders could no longer see incoming missiles, precious minutes would disappear. The radar screens had not confirmed an attack, but they were behaving exactly as they would if one had begun. That single resemblance changed everything. Reports flowed toward the command centers responsible for interpreting the growing confusion. From the perspective of those receiving them, the evidence did not describe broken machinery. The equipment was still operating. Something outside the system was drowning out its signals. The distinction offered little comfort. If hostile electronic warfare had blinded the Northern Warning Network, commanders could not simply wait and hope they were mistaken. The possibility itself demanded action. Far from the radar stations, crews responsible for nuclear retaliation began preparing for exactly that possibility. Strategic Air Command followed established procedures for suspected electronic attack. Nuclear-armed bomber crews moved toward alert status. Engines were started. Forces prepared to preserve the nation's ability to respond if missiles appeared over the horizon. Nothing visible had crossed the sky. Yet real military decisions were already unfolding because trusted instruments could no longer separate certainty from confusion. The radar screen had changed. Only moments earlier it represented confidence. Now it represented doubt. Silence settled over the displays where reliable information was expected to appear. And in a command system built to fear missing the first sign of attack, that silence became its own warning. The crisis might have continued along that path if everyone involved had been looking at the same evidence. Fortunately, they were not. Deep inside the military command structure, another group had been watching something entirely different. Instead of radar echoes, they monitored the sun. Solar observers routinely tracked activity that most military planners considered background information. Their instruments measured bursts of radio energy arriving from our nearest star. Most days, those records attracted little attention beyond specialists. This day was different. The recording pens surged dramatically across their paper charts. Observatories monitoring the sun detected an extraordinary burst of radio emissions, unlike ordinary activity. The timing matched the moment military radars had begun losing their ability to see. Two completely separate systems had observed two remarkable events. Until someone compared them, neither explained the other. The comparison transformed the entire crisis. The source of the interference was not approaching from across the Arctic. It was already shining overhead. An enormous solar flare had released an intense burst of radio energy across frequencies used by the early warning radars. The receivers had not malfunctioned. They had faithfully collected overwhelming radio noise arriving directly from the sun. From the radar's perspective, there was no meaningful difference between deliberate electronic jamming and natural radio interference strong enough to overwhelm its receivers. The machine had done exactly what it was built to do. Its assumptions had failed instead. That discovery moved rapidly through military communication channels. Solar forecasters relayed the evidence explaining that the radar blindness originated from a natural event unfolding nearly 100 million miles away. The contradiction was extraordinary. The warning network had correctly detected overwhelming interference. Its interpretation had been wrong. As commanders absorbed the new information, the meaning of every earlier report changed. What had appeared consistent with hostile electronic warfare now fit a documented burst of solar radio emissions measured independently by scientific observers. The preparations for escalation stopped. The radar screens themselves did not suddenly become more reliable. People simply understood what they were actually showing. Only afterward did the full significance become clear. The sun had produced radio noise so intense that it overwhelmed one of humanity's most sophisticated defensive systems. Military planners had trusted those systems because they had been designed around known threats. A natural event operating outside those assumptions exposed a weakness no amount of mechanical precision could solve by itself. The crisis left surprisingly little public memory. No missiles launched. No cities were destroyed. No dramatic announcement explained how close misunderstanding had come to driving military decisions. Instead, the lesson quietly entered the structure of defense planning. Space weather would no longer remain separate from military operations. Solar experts gained a permanent place alongside those responsible for interpreting warning data because the events of that day demonstrated something impossible to ignore. Technology had not prevented catastrophe alone. Independent human judgment had. The radar screen returned to its familiar role after the crisis passed. Once again, it watched silent skies for signs of attack. From the outside, almost nothing appeared different. Yet its meaning had changed forever. Before that day, it represented certainty. During the crisis, it represented confusion. Afterward, it became something more cautious. A machine capable of gathering remarkable information still depended on someone recognizing when reality had stepped beyond the assumptions built into its design. Nothing about the sun changed. Only our understanding of what nearly happened.